Hey guys, welcome to this episode of In Process Podcast. This is our very first episode, and just wanted to give you a little summary of what you can expect. We're going to go through some quick introductions for the team, discuss why the name In Process, and share a brief explanation of the transition from the Kimchi Kids podcast to In Process. And we'll jump into a group discussion, shedding a little light on who we are individually and as a team. So, to get going, why don't we start with a little quick introduction? My name is Thomas. I was born in Seoul and have been living here in Chicago pretty much my entire life. I am also a restaurateur here at Perilla Korean American Fair.
Hey guys, my name is Andy. Born here in Chicago, been here for most of my life as well, close to 30 years. And I've been a chef and restaurateur in Chicago for about 4 years now, 5 years now.
My name is Mary. I was born in Daegu, South Korea, but I grew up in Minneapolis and have been in Chicago for about a year now. I am a pastry cook at Kasama.
My name is Anjoleen. I am from Guam. I've lived in Chicago for about 3 years, and I am also in the restaurant industry.
Awesome. To give you guys a little light on why we chose the name In Process, just to give you an understanding, we felt that as a team, the journey is just as important as the final destination. And we also believe that it's a state of mind. No matter where you are in your journey, it's always an evolving process. And to just touch on the transition, basically, there was a difference of values, and one thing led to another, and a few of us parted ways. And we're incredibly excited to restart this show with a new energy, a new focus. The time away from you guys gave us a little time to really hone in on what values we felt are incredibly important as a team. And so Mary's going to share with you our mission statement.
So, our mission statement: we believe in sharing stories of resilience and passion by providing a space for inspiring conversations with trailblazers in all industries, for dreamers to find courage and be bold in their pursuits. Our hope is to strengthen community, foster connections, and pay it forward.
Awesome. And so to give you a little bit more in-depth knowledge on who we are as a team individually, we've prepared some questions that hopefully will give you a little bit more insight as to who we are. Anjo, you want to start with the first question?
I do. Okay. What does success in your life mean or look like?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Good question, Anjo.
It's a great question.
I know.
Does anybody want to take this one first?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start it off. I think for me, I think the idea of success has changed, throughout my life. When I was younger, it was, a position of status or power or money. I was like a 7-year-old being like, I'm going to rule the world one day. But I think in my, later, more recent years, I'd say over the past 5 to 10 years or so, it's become more of a, more than a financial situation. It's more important for me to have peace and happiness in my life. And that I'm learning is not found necessarily through financial gain. And, the relationships that I've created and nurtured over the years, I'm realizing are far more valuable to me and to, who I am as a human being and my success, way more than, power, status, or money.
I love that. I don't know if I have like a direct response. I think there's a lot to unpack with a question like this. I think for me, it's been kind of an evolving process in itself. Success is, it's it's being able to, I guess, move your target around a little bit. For me, it's constantly being able to manage my time. I think that that's a big part of it for me. It's if I'm constantly chasing all of my projects, chasing time, my personal time, I feel like that to me is like a sign that I'm failing at something. And I feel like grabbing at every opportunity to do something, another project, another restaurant, another event, that doesn't translate to me as a sign of success. It's managing all of that in a manner that is giving you the time and energy to succeed in all of those tasks that you have or projects. That to me is an important part of success. So
I think success to me, similarly, I think it has changed. Like when you're a kid, what you think being successful is like in life. But I think things that I think of immediately would be loving what you do, finding fulfillment, finding balance. I think balance is really important. Success in life isn't just working and being successful in work. It's balancing, being able to balance other things. I think that is what true success is, at least to me. I think being able to do the right thing and still be a good human at the end of the day, whatever that means to you. Like, I think that's a huge part of it too. Like who you become and who you are in pursuit of money or power, some of these other things, I think it can change you. And if you're a grump that just like puts bad energy and bad things out in the world, like I don't think that's success at all. And so I think when I think about that, when I think about success, there's a well-roundedness to who you are and what you're doing in all areas of life. And I guess that's the way the word balance really comes to mind. But yeah, what do you think, Anjo?
I feel like it's kind of like a little bit of what everyone is saying, but that's like why it's so special for each person. But when I think of success, I think of fulfillment. And that takes me back to like, what do you value? So if you can think, right, of like the 5 top things that you value in your life that you would do if nobody was watching, if you didn't make money or get any like accolades or fame from it. If you take those 5 things and you can incorporate them into your daily life and really think about it and grow, then that's what success looks like to me.
I love that.
All right, jumping into our next question. Who is someone who's taken you under their wing and helped you grow?
I can go first here. Through every episode that we've recorded in the past, I think that a common theme that we saw here was this idea that all these amazing people we have had the chance to sit down and meet and interview, I would say most of them, if not all of them, had some form of mentorship in their life. And I feel like for me, I probably had a few mentors, but one really stood out for me, which was my old GM, Steve Tyndall. And he's just one of those guys that really kind of like believed in my dream. He was always confident and gave me confidence to do the work that I felt like I needed to do. And I think part of like having a mentor like Steve in my life was grounding for me, and it was giving me a resource, really is what it was. It was a resource for me to learn more from this person, have them challenge me, have them not only just nurture my professional career, but also just like be able to be comfortable enough to kind of step into my personal life at times when he felt like that was needed. I always felt a deep connection to him. I still feel connected to Steve, throughout my career, and the ability that now I can sit down with him and just, have a conversation like we just didn't miss a day. Says a lot about I think where we were in our relationship, professionally, and personally. So, big shout out to Steve Tyndall for, always just believing in me and giving me the tools that I needed to succeed.
Yeah, I think I've been also very fortunate to have a mentor in my life. But I think what episode was it that they said, or it was Jennifer Kim from Paso Roto, but she said that her mentors were the people that she worked with.
Yeah, the peers.
She learned the most from her peers than she did from an older generation mentor. And I'm not discounting mine, Chris Pendel. He still is, and just a tremendous influence in my life. And he's done so much for me. He still does. Anytime I need help, assistance, guidance, advice, he's no hesitation, as busy as he is. But more than that, I think, not more than that, but just as important, I think I've almost neglected to acknowledge the lessons I learned from the people that I see on a more regular basis than Chris these days. And that's you and Alvin and, my family. There's so much more that I can learn on a daily basis working with, these incredible, talented people, versus, once in a while when I'm, stuck on something or I need, chef advice or anything like that. You guys have taught me so much, the last 4 or 5 years that we've been very intimately working close together. So I'd say that's whatever the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I feel like I have one person that comes to mind specifically. They weren't really a mentor per se, but when I lived in San Francisco and I was studying for my certified sommelier, I worked with Jenna, and she is mad genius.
Jenna. She's been here.
Jenna
right?
Jenna's
Basaldu.
been here, yeah.
Yeah, she's been here, but she's just that kind of person who always has energy, is always doing a project. She teaches, so she would do blind tasting and help me study, and she just was always on it, and she always had fun, which is something I really admired. But going back to what you're saying, Andy, of because that wasn't really a mentor, but thinking about the people that are around you as mentors, I think is a big thing. And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people that are better than you and they can inspire you and teach you, even just sitting down here and when I say mentor, I could say Thomas, which is a little corny, but watching even the both of you with all the projects that you have going on and having time to do the podcast and hang out with people, I just think that keeping the people in your circle where you really admire, I think it's every day I learn from you guys. So yeah.
Mary, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel in different seasons, if you're hungry for it, you can always find ways to grow and learn, whether it is by your peers or older people. I think someone in particular from my last job comes into mind when it comes to especially the phrase take someone who's taken you under their wing. Susan was a copywriter, and I think one of the qualities that's really crazy that maybe all of us have sort of touched on is finding someone who believes in you more than you believe in yourself, I think, in seasons, and that pushes you and challenges you to grow, maybe in ways that you're too scared to or things you haven't thought of. And yeah, I guess she like really saw something in me in terms of wanting being in food writing. And so actually on my last day in Minnesota, she bought me a journal and was like, "This is for future food writing, Mary, just to keep your notes." And yeah, just someone who talks to you about professional things, but I do think the personal things are important too, and who you are across all those realms, how you make decisions, being able to stand up for the right things when you need to. Those are all qualities I guess I look up to and I have a certain respect and admiration for. So, yeah.
I love that. I also want to add, like I just, when Andy was saying and Anjo, I feel like these days, like, Steve is not in my life anymore. And I feel like it is incredibly important, like both of you already touched on, finding inspiration from the people that you're working with or allow in your life every single day. And I feel like those mentors today are some of the people sitting at this table. So I love that. I also want to explain for anyone that's listening to this episode, the noises in the background that you're going to hear, like the police car that just drove by.
It's life. It's all a recording.
Our sous chef screaming in the
the phone's going off. To give you a little light on what's happening is we are recording this in our restaurant, Perilla, here in downtown Chicago. And because of that, you'll hear phones. You might hear a sous chef singing, dancing, screaming in the back. So just be prepared for that. And you can find this full-length YouTube video on our YouTube channel as well. So you can watch it, not live, but you can watch the show and see our restaurant and get a feel for this. And we'll be recording here in the future with all of our guests. So
Perilla, if you're listening.
401 North Milwaukee.
But just wanted to maybe welcome you to the new set and to our space, our home. Feel very lucky that we can do this here. And I just feel like feels right. Feels good.
Feels good.
Anjo, do you want to take the next question?
Yes. What has been the most recent lesson that has grounded you in your work? Ooh.
Oh, I have a good.
Yeah.
So this is actually great timing for this question. We just recently, Thomas and I recently went to Camp Chosun, which is, Mary, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, Camp Chosun is a camp for Korean American youth. A lot of the kids attending have some sort of connection to adoption, whether their parents are Korean adoptees or they're Korean adoptees themselves. And so just a space where you can really feel safe and comfortable being who you are, finding belonging, finding a little oasis between Korea and America and wherever you feel like you land in that. So.
Yeah, so it was very humbling and inspiring to see this kind of safe space for these kids who needed that sense of belonging. And I'm sure all of us have had that feeling at one point in our lives where we felt like we didn't belong. And I definitely got that sense there. And when they were all gathered there, everyone was so, I don't know, like just comfortable and free, it felt like. And just, it was just a very big, I would say a milestone in my career almost, where I just got to finally, like my work that I've been doing, I got to share it in a very cool way that I never thought I'd be able to. So,
I love that.
This is going to sound very counter. So something that grounds me in work, I think it's easy to get caught up in the go, 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 like just keep working. And I think actually this sounds crazy, but I got COVID recently and taking the time away and just finding things that refresh me to be able to give my best, and not just give my best at work, but give my best to the people. Like so much of work, I think, is working your hardest, putting the best product out, being perfect again and again and again in your work, but not neglecting the people around you and not just being a jerk, being someone who's gonna help someone out when something spills in the walk-in, and not to say that I'm perfect and I do that all the time, but I think being away, taking breaks, finding things that refresh you is so important to be able to give your all when you are at work.
Is there something in particular like that you did that you were like, man, I haven't done this in a while. This makes me feel good?
Well, I think like being in nature always kind of brings me back. It's again kind of a humbling thing to be like, oh, like I'm so small. I have a friend who always says like I love to go places where I feel small, like whether it's Grand Canyon or like you're next to a huge waterfall, and just be brought back to realizing, just
humbling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I love that.
Angela, do you want to share your answer on that?
What has been the most recent lesson that has grounded me? I would say it's like on the same line as Mary. It's taking the time for yourself. I think growing up, I was always very talkative and I always wanted to be around people. And now in my life, I find the opposite, where I get like a little anxious and I need to be alone. And it's like something that I'm getting used to because I don't feel like that's how I perceive myself, but I just know as I grow right now in my life, I'm like, I need that time to just sit and be quiet. So I think self-awareness is a huge thing for me, taking time to think about like, how am I showing up in my life? How am I showing up for myself, showing up for others, and just having accountability checks is super grounding, because the way that I see myself, maybe others aren't seeing me that way, or maybe I'm overthinking it. So I think just taking the time to do the work, whether it's like journaling or meditating, that's been grounding me lately.
I would say for me, it's like the focus is really shifted. I think watching my peers now as an owner operator of our own business, I can kind of like look and see who's out there just building up to build up, who's, working hard to stay in the limelight maybe. But then there are a few outliers out there that have really inspired me, and their work has been the lesson for me, and that is to work hard to continue doing what we're doing, growing, but all the while making time to pay things forward. And I feel like that's kind of like where I feel like my my stage of my life, where I am as a tree today, is to really just kind of like create some shade for the generations to come. And I think that a big part of my focus these days is really trying to make time in my calendar to do things that will have an impact on the next generation, which includes this show. This includes my day-to-day work, events that me and Andy are like, curating or, working together with. A big part of that is always like to have a focus on like what this is going to do for somebody, right? And at the end of the day, it's like we've been fortunate and incredibly grateful to be where we are, and it's important that we set up the next generation to do that. So, yeah, that would be my lesson.
It was a really cool kind of result of our last podcast, and it almost is why, even after that ended, I still wanted to continue and be a part of this podcast, was the people that got inspired through listening to those episodes when I thought no one was listening at all, and it's not like we have millions of followers yet, but just the fact that the 3 people that listened were inspired by it, and one of them actually works here now, from Georgia, which
Right.
is crazy. Like how that even like became a reality to me is just like bonkers, right? And like, and that's just one of many stories that we've had that people have been impacted, and people will like text me and be like, "Dude, I just listened to this episode with, you know, Danny and Angel from Anju and da da da." But and it's like, what? Like, how did you even come across that? You know, and it's just really cool to see the impact that it has. You know, and it may not be a global impact, but even if it inspires, you know, even that one person and change one person's trajectory, you know, that's awesome. You know, it's really, really cool to be a part of something like that.
Oh yeah.
That leads us into our next question, Andy, actually.
Oh.
Just impactful moments. So, has there been an impactful moment in your life that's changed the trajectory of your life or changed the way you live? Has there been a particular time?
I mean, so many. So many. But I'd say like, I mean, I can get tragic here, but
I'm gonna get tragic. I don't know if you're thinking what I'm thinking, but
but I'll save that for another day, I think. I think when I started cooking, that changed my life professionally. Like it was like, I don't know. I found my peace and my happiness through cooking, and it was just being in it and learning. Just the small things, right? Showing up to work on time, being disciplined, putting in more effort than is asked of you. You know, just like those little lessons that I took for granted growing up, actually had to apply in this setting in the kitchen. And like, if I wasn't on top of my shit, if I wasn't, you know, constantly trying to improve, and I was a new guy, so you're going to be, or back then you were constantly just crushed by everyone else. So I just learned like, I had to work harder than everyone else, you know, and it was this, I don't even know why I kept doing this. It was because I love it, but like it was so demoralizing and so hard, like physically exhausting, mentally exhausting, like soul crushing. Like I would fail every single day, every day. And on top of that, everyone around me would tell me I sucked. And they're just like, why are you doing this? It's like, this is never going to get better, right? And the work part of it, they were right, but the perspective part was different, you know, and that's where I evolved and changed and learned like nothing great comes easy. And you know, that lesson I continue to learn even today, you know, like Tom and I keep wondering when the hard part stops. It just doesn't end, you know, and the further up we go, the more responsibility we have, and yeah, it's exhausting, but I think we've at least learned to find some harmony in how we live, and balancing the personal time and the work time and all the in between. But yeah, that's one thing.
I've got a story about this as far as the impact moment. One thing that comes to mind was when I was in my 20s, I was climbing the, let's call it corporate ladder at the restaurant. And I feel like I was just knocking these checklists off. Like I was on a roll, and I felt probably like most people in their 20s, cocky, incredibly confident, a little bit of hubris at times. And I remember, you know, I went through this phase of my life where I started just kind of doing things outside of my comfort zone. And one day, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go and backpack Yosemite National Park. And I had never backpacked before. I knew I loved nature, but I was never into like the camping and the outdoorsy stuff as I am today. But I said yes on a whim. You know, I was making good money, so I remember just going to REI and just like splurging on everything. And like as an Asian dude, just like love tech stuff, any gear related things. I, started nerding out with those things. But I went up to Yosemite and we did this hike. And when we were planning this hike, I remember we were just so pumped at the idea that we were going to summit El Capitan, which is an incredible, one of the coolest mountains in Yosemite National in the valley. A lot of famous rock climbers go up this the hard way. We went the easier way, but we were backpacking it up, and it was like a week-long trip. It was my first time, and I just remember, where I was in my state of mind at that time in my life, in my career, and then just getting crushed by this mountain. Like, this was one of the hardest things I had ever set out to do. And what's crazy is that when you're out there, there's no turning back. Like, there's really no way of saying like, all right, I'm going to go back to the car. I'll see you guys in a week, right? Like, you can't bail out. And we're like, I think day 3 or day 4, I'm tired. I'm, just exhausted. And I didn't think I was going to finish. Like, my legs were just giving out at this point. We had one more day to get to the top. And it was just such an incredibly difficult day. It was in the middle of July. So it's really, really hot in the valley, and you're not supposed to be doing these like high altitude hikes up there. But I remember getting to the top of the mountain that one day, and I remember standing there and looking down across the valley and seeing Half Dome and seeing the entire national park just from end to end. That moment set in to me that there are so many more mountains to climb in life, that I was just getting started. And I felt like it was an incredibly humbling experience. And so I totally connect with, your friend that was mentioning how they like feeling small in the world, because I think so many of us get wrapped up in the bullshit of life, and we're always like feeling like the world is revolving around us at times, whether you want to believe it or not. And we have these like little hissy fits throughout the day, like frustrations and these immediate reactions to like why things are not going the way they're supposed to, or my way. And I think like getting out there and being at the mercy of nature and being, feeling that vulnerable and understanding that nature in itself is such a powerful and dangerous thing as much as it is a beautiful, positive thing in life. It always reminds me every time I look out into that ocean and I just think about that riptide, like all these moments in my life that have really kind of shook me and reminded me how fragile my life is, how small I am and how insignificant I am in this thread of like this big, beautiful thing that's called life. And I'm just like a fragment of it, right? Like I'm just like this little rock spinning in the middle of nowhere. So that was my moment.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Thomas.
Does anyone else?
Yeah, I have one. An impactful moment that has changed the trajectory of my life would definitely have to be when my dad passed away a few years ago. And I think it's interesting because sometimes it's like weird to talk about, but there are a lot of cultures who value death just as much as life. And there's beautiful stories about celebrating somebody's life and not being sad by it, because I think it's like memento mori, is like, remember you have to die. Like, it's not happy or sad. It is what it is. And basically, I feel like I was this person and then I like completely changed and I had no control of it, which is wild to me. And there's like a few lessons that I learned and I carry with me. And the first is like, love is the most important thing. It's like, you can have all these accomplishments and yet, like, if you're a good person and you care about the people around you, that is more memorable than what you've achieved. And the other lesson is like life is uncertain. So if I feel like what you said, frustrated with what's happening today, like the power just turned off at the movie theater 2 out of the 3 hours of the movie.
No, what tragedy.
Yeah, tragedy. But there's like so many little things in our life where we react and then it's just like, it's not that big of a deal. And I think that when you remember that life is uncertain, it's not short, it's not long, nobody knows, but it's beautiful, it's uncertain. And if you carry that with you, then I think you make better decisions.
I love that.
For sure. Yeah, it's like I very much agree. It's like tomorrow is I carry that with me all the time. Is tomorrow is not guaranteed. You know, like so. Tell your loved ones you love them.
It got dark, Anjo.
It's not dark
light.
though.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
it was
Right?
beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
I'm like, it's not. It's
It's good.
it's the only thing that's promised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the universe we go.
Death and taxes.
I feel like my time that like changed a lot of things is the thing that I think about is more recent. It's how I ended up in Chicago even. I think it was last year in the spring. I took a trip to New York and I don't know if I was just living under a rock or something, but I didn't know all the things going on in New York with Jongshik and a lot of these big Korean restaurants and Korean voices being represented in industry. And I think it shook me to my core in that I think, so for listeners, for those who don't know, I'm adopted. So I was raised by a white family in Minnesota. And I think there's just been a lot of pieces of connecting to Korea and like it's been a part of my life and it's definitely been a process of, it's evolved and changed through the years. But I think I always thought like I could never own a Korean restaurant. People will think I'm a fraud. Like I was raised by white parents. I don't have my mom's kimchi and my mom's recipe. Like I never felt Korean enough around other Koreans. And so
Just call it Korean American. Get away with it.
Yeah. And so it was interesting because I guess in this season of time, like last spring, there's just watching different, meeting different people and watching people emerge. So seeing Yangban and seeing an adoptee woman own a Korean restaurant and reading about that. And then going to New York, going to Brooklyn and meeting Alice at Hana and seeing just like Korean American girl doing her own thing, like sharing her story and realizing that we're in a day and age or a time and a space where you can be Korean and American and share that with the world and you can create what you like. You're not stuck in this, it has to be traditional. You look at Lise and Anjoleen and you look at French technique, Korean flavors, pastries, but it's in New York. And I think just to realize all of who you are can be put out there. It was so exciting. And I like sat on it, thought about it. I would wake up in the middle of the night and like be like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like, and just to feel represented. Like, and I feel like I have a weird story too, because I grew up with a lot of Korean things. So like, yes, being able to taste the nureungji, the toasted rice flavor in this sorbet that also is, different things like that. It's like, I relate to that. That takes you home. That like one of the beautiful things about food, like food, everyone has to eat, but also it evokes like deep emotion. Like you can feel so comforted. You can be brought to different times and places through food. And so just to have all of that and to feel so represented, like just as in the same way that as a kid, I always like rooted for the Asian character on like shows and stuff. I'm like, yay, representation. Like to feel represented in food felt amazing. And that's how I ended up moving. I just knew I wanted to be in a place where that was possible. And I was looking at different cities and just being able to travel and see what was out there and be like, I want to be part of this. I want to watch it happen. I didn't realize this was happening. So that was definitely a big impactful moment for me.
I love that.
And we're
Anjo.
glad you came to Chicago. Hey, Anjo.
What's up?
You got another question there?
I sure do. What's this is kind of like steering it. This is kind of steering it. Maybe we go with these questions. But
Just ask
what's something you've watched or consumed recently that inspired you? Could be a movie, could be a book, could be a show.
Yeah. I can jump on this real quick and say that I've been reading, still reading, Will Guidara's book. It is called Unreasonable Hospitality. And I think this is such an important book of our time because, so to give a little light, I've spent some time, I've spent some time in this industry, and for a long part of my youth, I wanted to be a cook, and I tried my hand at it. I worked on a sushi line for a year and learned that I would rather host a party than cook it. And so for the majority of my career, I've been in the front of house, and I've always looked at chefs, right, as kind of like an inspiration, right, a wall of inspiration for me. And it's so rare to come across these books that are written for the front of house, right, for hospitality. And there's a few books out there that are definitely staples, and the one I grew up with was Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. And so I've always admired, there was a point in my career that I wanted to move to New York and was like, I wanted to work for Danny Meyer. I wanted to work for Union Square Hospitality Group. I wanted to be in the fold of somebody that I felt really understood what we were doing. And so to have his predecessor, his student, come out and release this book, I think it's incredible. I think that whether you're in the front of house or you're the back of house or you're in business or you're in anything that you're doing, I think this book relates to you. I think that there's something that you can take from this book because it's not just like a memoir, right? There's just so much information in this book that every time I pick it up and I put it down, I feel like I'm walking away with something different from it. And I feel like it's been awesome to see. I've encouraged Andy to read it, and he's probably already done with it by now at this point. But it's fascinating to me that when we went to the Welcome Conference together, I think that there was a little bit of Andy saying like, hey, this is a front of house thing. Like, what am I going to get from this thing? And to see his response and reaction to that conference, to see, Jason Hamill out there on the stage, completely letting himself be vulnerable to all of these amazing peers that are in this industry and talk about just subjects that like are difficult to touch on. And I think that that's what like this book is about. It's not like singular, right? It's really comprehensive, and there's like anything in life, a tool, you get what you put, I guess, like, someone could just take something and be like, oh, this is just that. But like someone else could take up that same tool and be like, oh, this is great. Like I can use it for this. It's like anything, right? It's like how you go into something is just as important as what you're going into. And so I think because of my eagerness and like that kind of notion to myself that I'm looking for something here, it's been proven to be incredible and helpful and useful in so many ways that I just like, I put the book down and I'm like, I can't wait to share this with my team, So that's
Such a good book. It's about it. What you were saying is like anybody can read it. It's essentially about service, which can be found in every job.
right. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I love the just the title itself is so clever. Unreasonable Hospitality. It's the idea of it. Will Guidara was thinking about like how fucking crazy chefs are, and like how psychotic the kitchen is, and the demands that you make of your team, and then even the front of house, like what the chef expects them to execute in the front of house. And it's always been since the beginning, like the chef can be a fucking psycho nut, and we must abide, right? But his whole thinking on it was like turning that into a positive thing, and because Will is a psycho as well.
Yeah.
But making it like, why can't you apply that same incredibly high expectation to hospitality, not just the product, right? It's like, can you provide and go out of your way and be unreasonable with the level of hospitality and service that you can provide to your guests? And I thought that was such a smart way and perspective to look at what we do as being in the industry or just in service in any form. And I've never seen or heard that before. And we've been in this industry for how long, right? And like, we talk about it and we practice it and we want to be that, but like for now that Will put it in a book and made it really crystal clear, like it's been, I don't want to use that, but that was incredibly inspiring to read as well.
Selfless service.
Yeah.
Selfless service. I mean, this isn't about the industry, but the show alone, it's so interesting, and it does get tied back to what we talk about how there are all these people and they're living their lives in their own special and different way. And then you have us in the restaurant industry, you have people that are in politics, you have people that are out living in the wilderness without any electricity and like running water, plumbing. And it just reminds me that whatever you do, whatever you choose, just give it your all. And also, you don't really need much to be happy.
What show is this?
Alone.
Oh,
Oh, you
Sorry,
breezed over
I didn't-
that. Yeah.
I was going to say you said the show. And I was
The
like,
show
did
Alone.
I miss? Oh, yeah.
What is it on? What is
It's
Alone on?
Alone, and it's
on
on
Netflix.
It's on Netflix now.
Yeah.
But it was originally on like...
I think Hulu.
No, it was
There
like
was a
the
channel it
the
was on.
travel
Yeah, Travel
or
Channel
like
or something.
like one of those
So
Discovery,
so it's like 12 people. They get dropped off in
the middle of nowhere.
like
And
Canada.
It changes. It's Canada. It's
Nowhere,
Alaska.
Brazil, or
Yeah.
all over. They've done a couple different locations. Yeah.
And they are supposed to survive alone.
Yeah. I will say that I want to add to that because, like, so Anjo and I watched this show. We just finished a new one. One thing that Anjo said when we watched this show is like, she loves the show because, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but
It's
and I
reality
agree.
TV.
It's reality TV, which is always like based on some
Drama.
nonsense bullshit, right? They just want like, ooh, what did he say to her? And it's like,
They're always bringing out the worst in people.
Yes.
And the show Alone is a reality show, but it brings out the best in people,
I love that.
which is what I love. It's not like priding itself on who's banging who's like rude to this guy, or like
Right.
what the hot gossip is, or like it's
Yeah.
about,
It's not a cheap laugh.
it's not a cheap laugh. It's like these people are figuring out how to use their body and mind, and you just see it bring out the best in them, and you hear the things that they say about like the beauty in life and of nature, and it's just really cool to kind of indulge in TV. Yeah, it's like sends a really positive message.
Yeah, I love that one. We can get off this, but there's that one guy that like it was in the beginning of the show, and he's out there and he's just like, I don't know, building his house and whatever, and he's like it's probably like day 20, and so everyone's getting restless. Some people are starting to give up, and he's just like, everyone has been on the show has like said how alone they are, and he's like, how could they feel alone out here? He's like, I'm surrounded by nature and life is all around me. And it's happening like every waking moment I'm out here. And I'm just a part of it now. And I thought that was like...
We're like,
yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. That one woman on the show is just... She's like, could be a yogi. Like, she's just so like, I
Yeah.
don't know, in Zen. And just
she's
so happy.
57 and
She's crushing
She's crushing it. So.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anything from the you guys on stuff you've read or watched or...
So mine is actually YouTube series, but it's is it Mystery Menu? It's Sola and Ham on the New York Times Cooking
yes.
Channel.
Big shout out to those two.
Yeah, and I think watching Sola grow so
She's the
much,
best.
having her be like in the behind this or like be the person that the star chef on Bon Appetit like didn't know what to do when something went wrong, and they're like, Sola, what do I do? Like watching her from there to then everything exploded at Bon Appetit, and having her stand up for herself, just watching her whole journey. And then seeing her get like the ancient times, and she was making these ancient recipes, and just her personality. She's so fun. And now to see her in Ham, and I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of things, and so when I got COVID, I just binged everything. I like watched her in Priya and like the gingerbread house. They like they make gingerbread house every year, and last year they did the Home Alone house, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, we saw that.
And then, but just all of the mystery items and seeing the creative menus, it's definitely like lighthearted and just easy to watch. And so, yeah, I think she's been an inspiration in who she is. So yeah, Sola, if you're listening to this, if you would like to join the M Process podcast, please reach out.
Not join, but be a guest
Sorry,
on.
yes, be a guest. Be a guest.
We can make room. We can make room.
No, but that's the beauty of this gear. We were watching a review on the podcast gear, and it's like it's the perfect gear to travel with. Put it in your backpack and go.
Yeah, so
So we're
Sola
going
and
in-
Ham, we're gonna come.
Are they in New York or are they in LA?
They're in New York.
New York.
Yeah.
New York.
They
Okay.
live in
So-
East Village, I think.
But the
We'll
show
plan.
is awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It's a great show.
They do
Me
a
and Angel
3-course
watch it.
menu with like everything from Hot Pockets, I think, to coffee beans, and yeah, there's been some fun secret ingredients.
The best part is
So
when Sola's drawing the menu.
I love her drawing.
That's the best. They're always
And I love how
incredible.
she's like, cocktail time. And she's like, she's like, make a cocktail.
Sola's someone I want to hang with.
Oh,
you
for
know?
sure.
And Ham too. Ham looks like he's just
You
chilling.
you don't have to say it. He's not listening. Like, we love you too, Ham. Don't worry.
Watch, we get an email from both of them. They're like,
Oh man, Ham does not like the show.
Yeah, I guess another question though. I think paying it forward, giving it back, that's definitely been a theme we've talked about here on the podcast. And so I guess for each of us, like, why is it important to give back?
gratitude. That's why. Because we're here. Because we're recording a podcast. Because we have decisions, right? I was just talking about this with Anjo yesterday. You know, my 3 words of gratitude every morning. One of my words yesterday was like decisions.
Sorry. I thought you forgot.
I forgot. I was like, but it was decisions. And it was like, to expand on that, it's like that I am grateful that I am in a position in my life to be able to make decisions, because not everyone is even given that luxury, you know, and then we take that for granted every day. Like, we take all these things for granted so much. And, you know, it's going back to that Yosemite trip. Like, when I got home and I was able to flip a fucking switch for light and move a piece of metal, and all of a sudden hot water was coming out of my sink. Like, those little things you get reminded as you're out there at the mercy of like boiling your water and heating up your food and like making sure you're rationing enough food for yourself for like 8 days out there. Like, all these little things, like, that's why I love that. I feel like it grounds me and it recenters my focus in life. And like, you know, we're like, especially at that time in my career, I was like pouring like, you know, beautiful Burgundies and opening Bordeaux's and like living and surrounding in like vanity of like high-end glassware and expensive whiskeys, and, you know, and it's like selling expensive plates of like, you know, tasting menus and dishes. And like, gratitude is the foundation on which I want to stand on for the rest of my life. And I think that paying it forward is a reminder to yourself. It's your duty. It is your responsibility as someone that's been so privileged in life and given so much, to make sure you're giving as much back. So
I feel like that's the word I was going to say, was duty. Duty. No, but really is like, I think it's that right in between of for everything that I didn't have and for everything that I had. The reason that it's important to give back is because all of the tools and the things that I wish I had when I was younger, like the mentor that I maybe not have had, the piece, the person that I could go to, or the lessons that I could have learned more easily from childhood. So yeah, taking everything that I didn't have, and then being grateful for what I do, that's the reason why it's important to give back. And it's kind of like that saying of like, if you can, then you should. Then you must.
You must. You must.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's of course I do. I disagree. You guys are fools.
There was uncertainty there. It was like, hey.
Yeah. No, but I don't know. It's like, it's part of being a human being, I think, right? Like, I don't know.
Not for everyone, man.
I know, but it fucking should be.
Yeah.
Like, if you like, no matter what state in life you are, I feel like there's someone who's in a worse state. Always.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's just like, it's just part of being a human. It's like it's how we got here, by people helping people, and I think it's just crazy to think it's not a part of who we are. But I sound like an asshole, don't I?
You don't sound like one.
But yeah, I don't know. It seems, I mean, and again, I grew up in a religious household. My dad was a minister, so like it's always been a part of like my upbringing. But like even as an adult, it seems very much, and with the art community too, right? Like Bill Kim and Juan, and the people we're connected with are also and Howard Bailey, right? They think along the same lines as we do, and it's not a question, right? And it's not like, oh my God, you're such a good person. It's just like, yeah, we need to do this. Are you, and let's work together on making this happen, year over year. And however we can contribute, we should. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's a very obvious thing,
Like as generations go by, I think about the things that my grandma was able to do. And I think about what my mom was able to do,
And then
us.
Right.
It's just like maybe the reason why it's so important is because
Like one of your most recent good friends is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
yeah,
Anjo's
there's an article about that.
Second
How
partner
it's
in
going to take
life.
away
Could you imagine your grandmother,
Chad GPT.
right? Like,
finally someone I get along with. Totally gets me.
yes.
No, but it just like reminds me of like particularly when you three share when you share your stories about how, people can come into the restaurant, or like the Korean American, like space between, it just reminds me of like the reason that we do it is so maybe somebody doesn't have to feel the way that I felt. Right? Maybe they go straight to feeling free, and like maybe they take that for granted, but like good for them that they have that space that they can find something else to be grateful for,
Yeah. I love that. Mary?
I feel like you guys covered so much. Yeah, I mean, I guess I really feel like when you take a look at your life, when you like sit down and reflect, like I have been given so much, and how can I not share that? Like share the wealth. And I think, I liked what you said, Andrew, about like you do it for like this younger version of yourself. Like I think sometimes I feel like when you give, you still end up receiving more than you feel like you gave. But yeah, doing it for like fighting for what you wish you had, or what you did have that not everyone has. I think that's something that I see a lot. Like just wanting to be able to be a resource. I think that's one thing I see in my life a lot, being a connection point for people, whether it's to Korea or to other people, and just being able to share opportunities. I think that's huge. Realizing that it's not equal out there for everyone. So doing what you can to give into that, for sure.
I love that.
So we're all in the restaurant industry. hospitality industry. What's something you wish your guest or customer knew?
Wow. And I only have one thing I can say here. Okay, I know what I want to,
Where do we
and I'm going to
start?
give a huge shout out here.
Not for
I'm
lack
going to
of
give it a shout out. He's not going to listen to this episode, but
Wow.
shout out to my business partner Alvin King, who
He's going to listen to it now that his name is in it.
I don't know. I feel like
he's critiqued every single episode.
Yeah.
Like it sucks.
Here's what I'll say. Alvin shared a podcast with me, and I'm going to draw a blank on his name, so please forgive me. But the podcast is held by the founder of Check Please. I want to say it's David
Manilow.
So David has a podcast here in Chicago, and he's interviewing other industry professionals. And on one episode specifically that I'm alluding to, it was with Luke, one of the founders of a restaurant group here in Chicago. And Luke said something that was really inspiring for me in regards to customer reviews. And I thought it was so beautifully said that I want to kind of paraphrase it to some degree off my memory. So it was something along the lines of this: the restaurant business in itself is a service focused business. Okay. Our number one goal as a restaurant is to give you a beautiful space with trained professionals that are keeping you safe, that are keeping you feeling warm and welcomed, guided, taken care of throughout the entire experience, right? Like, that is our goal. Like, we never have a goal. We never start the night with like, by the way, guys, tables 22 and 43 tonight are just going to get standard service, right? Like, we aim for a touchdown on every single table, okay? And with all the work and, needless to say, money that goes in to operate a business, with that goal in mind, for that business, that industry to be critiqued so hard, so harshly, so unapologetically, like, this is what I think about so-and-so's diner. Like the harsh critics out there, like, this whole business is set around the idea of trying to make you happy. Like, the aim is to please. Like, where we find differences, that's on you, right? If you're not happy with a place, then all you need to do is not support it. All you need to do is not go there because you don't align with the same values or, you know, your ideals of what a experience should be. That's fine. But I think what Luke's kind of defense was like, why does the restaurant industry deserve this? Like, our only goal is to make you happy, right? Like, let's not forget that. Like, that is our number one goal every single night. Every time we seat somebody at a table, our goal is to, like, this person's going to leave here full, feeling like he's like a warm hug, right? And just taken care of. Like, we want people to come here and have a great time. But this industry has all these like review sites and has all these things. And it's like, there's people out there that are just like, and I'm talking professionals too. Like, let's not leave them off the table here. Like, I'm talking newspaper critics, right? Editorial critics for publications that are national outside of just local newspapers. Like, there's some pretty nasty reviews that have closed businesses down. And I'm not saying every restaurant out there and every owner and every operator, every server that you've had, bartender, is perfect, right? Like, I get that. Like, but there are good ones, and there's a lot of them. In fact, the majority of the people that are like working in here because they care, because they want to, right? That's not to say we're perfect. Even as Andy and I, like, we're not perfect here. Like, unfortunately, cracks, occur, things slip through the cracks. And I get that, but like our goal is never to like ruin your day. Like the worst restaurant of my life, like Jesus, like really, like that's kind of like maybe they need to hear the first part of our group conversation here, about gratitude and understanding that. And it's like, I just thought it was really interesting that Luke put that out there because it's a beautiful perspective and a reminder to us that it's like, yeah, you know what? We don't deserve that. Like, I don't deserve to wake up every morning and see my Yelp notification and my Google business review notification go on my phone and like I have to listen to some bullshit from somebody that just had a really bad day and decided that like their mission was to go out there and just trash our business. Like the livelihood of people that are dependent on this, like this industry, I think we all learned after COVID, is such a fundamental part of this country. It's a huge portion of our GDP. There are countless people that depend on the livelihood, their paycheck, working in the service industry. And it's like for people to be so harsh and so impatient, like homeboy yesterday at the theater, that's like one person only working this whole line. It's just like, yeah, there's one person, dude. And he's doing the best he can. He didn't make the schedule. Like,
Or did he?
maybe he did.
He's like, paying for it now.
It's a
But,
Tuesday night.
at the end of the day, it's like, just wait, I
I think
like,
what like two things come up for me when you say that is like the stress part of me comes in and says like, I'm here to like provide you a warm, like, yeah, like what you said, like I'm here to like tell you about the menu, tell you about who we are, guide your experience, make sure that you have everything you need. But like, I'm not here to make you happy. Like I can't do that, what I mean by that is like, I can do my job to my best ability, but I'm not in charge of like how you feel. And I think that it's very easy to go to the DMV or like go to the store, go to any other service related job and have like a positive experience and be happy, or have a negative experience and be happy. But like when you go to a restaurant and you don't get your way, or you don't get that off menu item that they never offered you, you're upset.
Right.
So as much as like I want to give and I want to give, I just also want to say like, I'm not in. I don't know how to
Well, I think
really
falls
say
in-
that.
I think that falls in line with what he said, where it's like, if we're not satisfying what you expect out of a restaurant, then
Yeah.
just don't go back to that restaurant, kind of thing.
So my other,
there's only so many patio tables, right? And it's like,
yeah,
the unreasonable hospitality has its limits, right? Like there's, we're not building an extra table, because you forgot to make a reservation, right? It's
Yeah.
just like,
I think that for me, without like getting too like upset about it, because I want people to have a good time. I want people to have a good time, but you can't control how somebody comes into your business and the feelings and the emotion and the baggage that they're weighing their experience on. So, I mean, you can't change that, right? But
What kind of people are coming?
but
into your restaurant?
but really though, like any person who's like,
deeply
I'm coming in
traumatized.
for my birthday,
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, so is 30 other people, and we're in charge of their experience. So
Right.
it's just something. Before I get like into a tangent about complaining, what I really am answering this question is that something I wish that our guests and customer knew, something I wish that everybody knows is what I learned in like my yoga teacher training, is that we're all human. Like we're not bad because we make mistakes. We're not wrong or bad at our jobs because circumstances happen. I think it's just like remembering like we're human, and there would be moments where somebody would make a mistake and be like, that was so human of me. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I'm not a machine.
right.
Right? So I think that just remembering that we're all human beings, we all have emotions, we're all figuring out life on our own, I think that can really take you back to a place where you make more sound decisions and judgments. Just remembering like that we're all human.
I think, and a lot of what you guys are saying too, is that you being in industry, you carry that as you treat other service workers, whether it's healthcare or DMV, like these different places that you're mentioning. I think being in service and seeing how different it can be from what a customer sees to what someone in industry sees, like I think we're saying that there's a perspective that we're gaining a perspective. We know it's so different, that we know that there's so many things we don't know. And so you can give that grace easier to another service worker. And I think in the same realm, I mean, I guess this is just kind of phrased differently, but for me, when I think about this, like what I wish people knew, at least at Kasama, when I look at my team and I look at the people I'm around, is like how much love goes into everything. And like, yeah, there's a lot of hard work that like they don't understand, or there's things that you don't understand. But like, yes, the croissant you made, like I can tell you who laminated it and made that dough. And then the next person who made the ganache that filled the, like how many hands have to touch it? How much hard work, how many people are trying, like kind of what you're saying, Tom, trying to give you this experience. And to feel like, obviously they can't see that all, like how many different people have gone into loving this little croissant or whatever it might be. I think when you don't see that, it's easy to be impatient. It's easy to only care that you waited an extra 2 minutes at your table, or whatever that might be. But yeah, I guess just wishing that people knew how much love was going into making things.
I love that you bring that up, because I feel like it brings us back to like the podcast of like another important reason of why we're doing this is because maybe you don't see that, and maybe this podcast can give you that, right? Can give you the stories about the people who are spending, like, you know what I mean? You come into Perla, you have a great time, but it's like, little do you know that they were in the industry long before that, learning everything that they needed to get to this place. So
right. I love that. I love that you touched on that, because that's so true. As we like have sat down with some incredible people from all different industries that are at the point of where they are, it's so easy for us to like look at someone and just kind of capture a frame of who this person is and where they are, and to be like, and Andy just brought this up the other day about like, it's so easy for us to look at a person and be like, wow, look at this person. He's successful. He's got multiple businesses. He's right where he needs to be, right? And we just kind of take him at that value, or her at that value, and we're not considering that 20 years of grinding it out day to day, clocking in, clocking out, coming in with the same vigor and attitude and perseverance to, put in perfect work every single day. And that's what's happened here, right? Like 20 years I've been in this, over 20 years I've been in this industry. It's not just the 4 years of Perilla. It's not just where I am today. It's like, just something I'm reminded of as I'm kind of working with my team here. There's just so much that goes behind the scenes, and I wish guests, not to keep this thing so negative, because I felt like
let's go back
because it was, and that's only because of a recent review that I just read, and this person was misunderstood. Like, this person was confused, and had some expectation coming into this place. And, I would encourage people that are dining out to, just like you would anything, like you're about to give money to this person, this business, right? Like if it was like a $150 flight, you're doing your pretty good research on like, oh, where am I landing? What am I taking? Where am I sitting?
Oh, where am I landing?
You're doing your homework, right? I would encourage people, instead of just like blindly making a reservation somewhere, go somewhere with intention, right? Like, I think intention is such an important value that we should all have, like being mindful and being, having intention in what you're doing. And like going to a business, I think that should be included. Like, try to understand what the business is trying to do. Like, there's literally literature on their website explaining what they are, who they are, what their focus is on, so you have a better understanding of like the experience you're about to have, right? I mean, I'm kind of guilty of it myself when it comes to like movies. I don't like watching previews. I hate previews. I want to go into it blind. You know, but I'm just taking it for what it is, and maybe that's someone else's approach out there, even for dining. But maybe have just like an open-mindedness, you know, and a courage to ask questions when you're in the space and in the restaurant, to just be like, hey, what is it about this place? Like, what do you want people to experience here? And I really was one of the biggest catalysts for this podcast, was to like let chefs and operators and you know, professionals in their field explain, you know, have their moment, have their soapbox to be like, hey, this is what I want you to know about me, and what I want you to know about my business that I'm working hard on, or where my career is, you know, and what my work is intended to be. So
Just like humanizes it too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do the research and you care about where you're going, it's less of like, oh, I went to this restaurant and it sucked or whatever, but it's like, it's more of like, oh, I met the chef, I talked to them, I had a great experience. Like, I know why they're doing it. I respect the people that work there. But there are also businesses that don't put love behind it.
absolutely,
So
be mindful.
be mindful and like,
Yeah, look into it.
Yeah,
Maybe
or I mean, even the other side of it too, right? Where you just want to eat
you
something.
just want that Starbucks, like
Yeah.
quick, easy.
I think maybe the expectation might be too high. Man.
Expectation
I get it
is
if it's like you're paying $250 for a dinner, then you should have a fucking expectation, right? But if it's like, hey, I'm spending $5 on a cheeseburger, it's like, oh, and they messed up here. There's like, well, you can shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And just ask them to fix it for you.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
But
that's the
also,
takeaway, guys.
something I want customers and guests to remember
Bringing us
or
back.
to know is,
To remember. Don't you forget about it.
don't you forget. It's just like these reviews, right? It's and Thomas was touching on it, and he was being very mindful of what he was saying, but it's like, yes, we get these messages that we wake up to, right? It's like, oh, 1-star review. They're like, this isn't fucking Korean food. And it's just like, oh, cool, thank you. You know, that's how I start my day. But it's like, for you, it's just, you're just speaking on your experience and whatever, fine. But for us, you're publicly crucifying this restaurant, you know, this business. And it's like, that's not cool. Like, if we were allowed to do that to our customers or our guests and put like their worst moment on record forever, like they would maybe feel a little bit differently how they were responding to their experiences, right? And like how they're addressing these issues. Because like we said, this place is not operating solely on machinery. There's people here that are making these experiences happen. And, you know, just like our guests, we are not perfect and we are human and we mess up all the time, just like you probably fucked up at your job all day before you got to work. But,
That's why you need a break so bad.
exactly, you know, and it's just like you know, just be more understanding, you know, and have more empathy, right? It's just like and look at the fucking mirror, right? Like you're not fucking perfect.
God.
and
but-
with that,
No, I mean, yeah. I did go to Starbucks and pull this dramatic scene because the coffee wasn't the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I wasn't
it's just-
mean, but
yeah.
I wasn't a nice person.
When you threw the coffee in that little young person's face. Is that what you're talking about?
No, but I think
What it reminds me of too is that, like, I think what happens a lot, or you could have a bad experience, you can write a review, you could even forget that you wrote a terrible review, and you walk away and it doesn't affect you.
Right.
And I guess part of the plea here seems to be it affects us, you know? I don't know, but
stop
I think
making
in
reviews
this,
under
in the
4
same way, this is
stars.
going to sound really crazy, but I feel like in the same way that I feel like sometimes someone says chink to you, right?
Whoa.
And you
Like
carry
the
that
sound
with
or
you.
the racial slur?
The racial slur. You like there are moments that you carry with for the rest of your life that that person will never even remember having
Right.
told you. And I'm sorry, I
Right.
don't mean to equate reviews to racism.
It's
That's
the
not the
same-
goal here.
others.
Same thing.
But
It's
I
a hate
think
crime.
I'm just trying to say, I think it's easy to write a review out of emotion, out of anger, or whatever, and for like it doesn't affect you anymore when it really severely or intensely can affect restaurants.
Yeah, I think we have this policy also. It's just like praise in public and criticize or critique in private, right? So it's like if there is a problem, like talk to the restaurant, call the restaurant, and be like, hey, you know. And if you, I'm not saying just leave good reviews, but I am kind of saying just good. But if you have like anything negative to say, or if it's like, or I understand when they don't give a fuck and they're just like, it's just a shitty restaurant and the owners don't care, the servers don't care, then it's understood. But like for the most part, restaurants, like Tom alluded to, are not trying to give you a shitty experience. Like the goal actually is to provide a great experience, believe it or not. So it's, I guess, I don't know, just I would say maybe put some effort into emailing the restaurant versus a
Yeah.
1-star review.
I think it's also very helpful, like now that you say that, is like even being a front of house server, like if something's wrong and I can't read your mind or like your body language isn't telling me, like I don't know if there's something wrong. So just like if you were to go to any other business and there is a mistake, feel free to like let your server know or let somebody know that something's up, right? You don't go to a store and then they ring you up for the wrong thing and you're like, hey, you don't not say anything. So I think like as a diner, maybe people don't feel comfortable saying something and online they do. So maybe that's just like another piece of advice of like, we want to be better and grow. So if there's something that we can work on, or if you have like an opinion on something, like if you're willing to share it online, like share it with your server, share it with somebody, and make it more constructive rather than harmful.
Yeah. I love just to wrap this whole kind of section up in a positive way. I had a guest a couple weeks ago that came in and was like, just came out, I'm sure took some courage for her, and in front of her group of, it was a four top, so 4 people on the table, and she's just like, I have never done this before, and I'm so excited to see how you can show me how to best enjoy this, right? And like, I think just like putting that out there, putting herself out there, showing the little bit of vulnerability and being like, I would love to learn how to do this the right way. Again, just kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? Like, look into things, like be proactive in your own way, right? Like, and I think a lot of that you'll see will be very fruitful for you. So, to wrap this up, we want to just do a little bit of community shout out time. Shout outs is just a practice that, I want to probably shout out Rich Melman for this. This is probably his thing that I picked this up when I was working at Let Us Entertain You for a little bit. And it's something that I've carried with me here at our restaurant and something that we love on the show here as well. So just an opportunity to shout out anything that's positive, inspiring, could be someone, could be something, could be a moment. It's just a little reminder of, I always look at it as like a practice of gratitude is what a shout out is. So does anyone have a shout out first right off the bat?
I have 3.
Okay.
I have 3. My first shout out is going to Lula Cafe because I love that restaurant. Jason Hamill and
Wait, Lula Cafe? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I totally heard Le Cafe. I was like, that's why I reacted. I like looked at you. I was
Idiot,
like,
not on air. No.
I was like, no, there was a place called Le Cafe too.
When I think
loved it.
about where to eat breakfast, brunch,
And
it's Lula Cafe or it's nothing. I know. I'm sorry, and I'm not throwing hate. It's just like I have this like newfound love for eating at home, and Lula Cafe just always has like new menu items. The service is always great. The food is always amazing, and it's consistent. And I just feel so comfortable knowing, like, if I want to enjoy a meal outside of my home, like, I can go to Lula and I know I'm going to walk out of there super happy. And shout out to Ruth because she took care of us and she was super
Ruth.
awesome.
She was awesome.
And I have another shout out to you guys for spending your time. Spending your time, spending your life on this podcast. And then shout out to Mary for feeding us this morning.
Yes. Thank you.
And what was the place called, Mary?
Gotham Bagels.
Gotham Bagels. Shout out to Gotham Bagels and shout out to Kevin Yu over at Kasama who recommended it. Those were my shout outs. Was that all three of? Okay. We covered that.
Yeah.
Andy, Mary, do you guys have a shout out?
I actually want to highlight. I will shout out Theta in up north
Margaret.
with the chef Margaret, yes, and her husband Vinod. They're just wonderful people. They're just Margaret has this like energy, this spunk, this just like just this bright aura about her. And Vinod is just such a sweet man. And they just mesh so well together, and her food is incredible. We had the pleasure of hosting a couple of pop-ups for them here at Perilla, and the first one line out the door for, I don't know, 3 days or something. And then the second one was sold out right away. So definitely they have a lot of support and a good following here in Chicago, but they just opened up their first brick and mortar. So I wanted to make sure people were aware and to give them a try because her food is incredible and it's very, very, and it's approved by Vinod, and he's just like, he's a stickler about what it's from his hometown. I don't remember where his hometown is.
It starts with a K.
There it is. And, but it's the flavor.
Kerala?
It sounds like
Yes.
Kerala?
And
Kerala.
the flavors, I don't know, but I'm going to say yes. But the flavors are just so good and new and different. And I think it's an incredible addition to Chicago's food scene.
And they do a lot of vegetable forward dishes, like
Yes.
for people who are looking for more vegetarian
Vegan,
options.
vegetarian options,
And
yeah.
you would never know.
Right. Oh, it's so
or
good.
if you're not, because if you're just looking for delicious food,
Yeah.
too.
So good. And then I don't know enough about the area, but
I'm gonna shout out Jeremy Yep.
yep.
Some of you guys might not
Always.
know who this incredible human being is, but he is an incredibly talented videographer and photographer. We had the pleasure of meeting him here at a pop-up that we did for Ramen Lord and Alex, French Guy Cooking. So shout out to Alex and Mike
Mike.
Satinover for bringing Jeremy into our life. And even just like the act of like, so Alex threw out a tweet and was like, hey, is anyone in Chicago that could help me shoot? And Jeremy was like, I'm happy to help. Like, this guy is just lending his hand always. I'm sure, I hope he listens to this episode and knows all of us here on the In Process podcast team is incredibly grateful for all of the help, guidance, and support and constant support of just through this whole process of getting us up and running, helping us with the gear, and just, giving us his time.
And happily.
Happily giving us his time. So big shout out to Jeremy and his wife,
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Following that, I would also say shout out to Jenny Salita, who is helping us as well with some editing and just she's been an inspiration just to see how she can capture nature through. She's a photographer and editor and things, and to be able to see how well she can capture like a moment, whether it's a sunrise and just the way that you can see the fog fall over the water. It's very beautiful. And also a shout out to Gangnam Market. It's
Oh, hell yeah.
a
This is the
grocery store
beginning of
just down.
Koreatown.
Yeah, it's just down the street from me, and just to feel so seen and represented, to be able to walk down the snack aisle and be like, whoa, like I never thought I could live in the middle of a city and be able to eat my melon bar, like just different things. I think my roommate also very much enjoys the K-pop that plays while we're walking around. But yeah, no, it's shout out to having that just down the street.
Cool. And and shout out to all of you guys, and especially anyone that's downloading and listening to this episode. We understand that this is your time, and you can choose to do with it as you please. And so we're incredibly grateful that you've decided to tune into this episode and check out our first episode. We hope that you have a better understanding of who we are, each and every one of us. This new format that we're shooting and recording allows us to have a little bit more flexibility, and we hope that you're open to that. I'm sure some of you are probably sick and tired of listening to me and Andy just ramble on and on with our guests. So you'll see in future episodes that we've got coming, we're going to mix up the host table a little bit, and we'll have any one of us four here sitting down with the guest and really diving into who they are, what drives them, how they got to where they are, and really understand the process in their own journey. And we are incredibly excited. We have some really cool guests lined up already. And also a big shout out to Chio Takamoto and Cocotel Collective for being our very first sponsor to this show. We're so grateful for your trust in us and for allowing us to make this show happen. Should you also be interested in helping out and lending a hand, please reach out to us. You can reach us through DM, which would be on Instagram at In Process Podcast, or in email, which would be info at inprocesspodcast@gmail.com. And throw us a little shout out. Like, let us know what's going on. If, we kind of threw this out in past episodes and we're like, hey, what do you think? What do you want to hear? Like, let us know. Just don't do it on Yelp or Google Business. Let us know directly, and let us know how we can do something that maybe you find interesting. Or
unless it's a 5-star review. Then
yeah, or you could do that. And definitely, if you're listening to this episode and you've made it to this point, that means you give a shit. So we're really thankful for you. And take a moment and throw us a nice little 5-star review on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Those little things go such a long way. And sharing this podcast with people that you feel like could use a little inspiration from some of the guests that we're going to have on, by all means, please do that. You can find us on our YouTube channel. We'll be posting up all of our full episodes up there. So thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in.
See you later.
All right.
Be
Peace, guys.
Stop that shit.
people.